Here's Brody Brazil.
So I was down in Arizona last week for work covering baseball spring training, but one of my colleagues said, I feel like tonight I might go check out a hockey game. I want to see the Coyotes play in that small, intimate, exciting rink on the campus of Arizona State University. So this person starts to look up tickets and ticket prices, and oh my goodness, I had no clue that a night at the Mullet would be so expensive. I can't even say that with a straight face. It's the Mullet family, has nothing to do with hockey hair. I know you know this by now, but there's so many different ways we can bring up the mullet into our conversation. Anyway, back to the topic here. I had no idea that trying to just get into a game there was a difficult proposition financially. Let me set the scene here. A couple things you need to know. Mullet Arena is ASU's rink. They built it for the college team, but right now, temporarily, and I say that loosely, it's a 4,500, 4,600 seat arena that's playing host to the Coyotes with no expiration date set. When they got evicted out of Glendale, they landed here. They could have also played at the Footprint Center where the Suns play, downtown Phoenix. I guess that wasn't an option. Logistically, they can, but technically that offer was not made. So they're out in Tempe at the college rink, and they still don't have the future of their franchise sorted out. I know right now, they're trying to get that 100-acre plot of land north of the 101 loop on Scottsdale Road. They're trying to get that. It would be great, but that hasn't happened yet. And obviously, they're still working on it. The Coyotes also, when you think about these expensive ticket prices, like the entertainment might be there and the intimate hockey experience might be there, but the actual Coyotes team, fourth worst record in the West, and they don't have Connor Bedard. Right? There's not necessarily the superstars there that you would go pay to see regardless of the team's success. So they're not necessarily a draw in the sense of just themselves. It's not a great team playing in a small rink. It's maybe the atmosphere. That being established, 45, 4,600 seats, whatever you want to call it, they have effectively sold out every home game so far as I record this in the 2023-24 campaign. I already got ahead of myself. Yeah, they are trying to buy the 100 acres north, or on the north side of Scottsdale. I guess it's technically also North Phoenix is what it's called, but it's just north of Scottsdale. So they're working on that, but also this, and I'm just going to throw it in there, Salt Lake City is looming. And I don't know if the Desert Dogs are on their final chance or not to secure a new building. I think this is try number 3 maybe. Tempe, Mesa, North Scottsdale. So Salt Lake City has already put it out there in the Smith Group, which owns the Utah Jazz. Hey, we want an expansion team, but we're also ready to host an NHL team at the Delta Center next season. Like, they did not float that out there on accident. So I'm just saying, Salt Lake City is looming, and I don't want the Desert Dogs to move. I don't. But I want everybody in Phoenix and Scottsdale and Arizona to understand, this is getting precarious. You're starting to play with fire here. I know how these things go. All right, so now that you know that, I think February 21st, so a handful of days ago, this was when I had the realization, because this is the first day I looked up ticket prices. So that game against Toronto, which I think, did Austin Matthews have 2 more goals in that game? Dude's going crazy this year, but a big game, a headliner game against the Leafs, right? So if you're just a hockey fan in Arizona, you probably want to go see the Leafs. Now, these are the Ticketmaster prices before fees and surcharges. So I'm being generous here by saying that the lowest ticket price is $180. In reality, probably more like $210 with taxes and out the door. And the best ticket you could buy on that game day, again, I captured this on February 21st, the best ticket, $450 that I saw, more like a $500 ticket by the time you actually get your hands on it. And I do understand NHL ticket prices are generally up. But for a team like this, in a situation like this, it's a pretty steep price to begin with. How about this? March 7th, an upcoming game against the Minnesota Wild. I thought, all right, pedestrian-type opponent, not one of the original 6, not a Canadian team, not a headliner, but Minnesota. The lowest ticket price you can get in for here at the end of February for this March 7th game is $142. That's without fees and surcharges and taxes. That's also without an actual seat to the game. $142 at a base price, so probably more like $170 or $180. That doesn't even get you a seat. That's standing room only for a Coyotes game. I don't care how fun this is, standing room only for that price. Not just for one person. There's no parking, there's no food, there's no merchandise. You're talking about like You can't even do a family of 4 in standing room. You're just going to be you and your buddy. But even you and your buddy, that's easy a $500, $600 night when the tickets are already, $160, $70, $80 to begin with. And the best ticket you can get, $550 before surcharges. So yeah, probably in the close to the $600 range, March 7th against the Wild. And all these prices, I get it, they'll fluctuate by the time that the games get closer. All right, let's talk about the Blueshirts, an original 6 team. You'd think the Rangers would also be a big draw in Arizona. A lot of transplants that live in Phoenix and Scottsdale and Tempe and Mesa. The lowest ticket price for this one, again, is standing room only, without a seat, $150. So close to $200, you're getting into the game, but you're not getting a seat. And the best seat, $900. Is that listed here? I guess I didn't get it on the screen capture, but $900 before fees and taxes and everything else. So more than $1,000 for one of the better seats in the house. A small, intimate environment, but my goodness, $1,000 just for one ticket? It just seems insane to me. And I get it. Supply and demand are there. We'll talk about that in a second. But how about what players are saying? Now, when Toronto came into town, the Toronto Star did a handful of interviews, and they were not rave reviews of this temporary situation for the Coyotes, which, by the way, started last year, has continued to this year, and as of right now, has no end in sight. It could easily be 3 more full seasons. Zach Hyman of the Leafs said, quote, "It's fine to play once or twice, but to play a 41-game season here, it's not ideal. LeBron James doesn't play in front of 5,000 people, so why should Connor McDavid, It's kind of crazy, right? We want to be in the same realm as the NFL or NBA or MLB. Come on." End quote. It's a fair point. Now, this is a temporary situation, but temporary means that it has an end date, and you know how the end is going to go, and you can see it through. At this point, this is more like an emergency situation than a temporary one, and this emergency situation, in fairness to everybody, should not last indefinitely. Ryan Reeves told the Toronto Star this, and Revo, look at the picture. It's just what a photo of him, by the way. I don't know. It's just funny to look at. Quote, "It's disappointing that we allow something like that to happen, the arena. 5,000 fans, it's 4,600 by the way, is not what the NHL is about. We're trying to grow the game, and being in an arena like that only allows for that many fans is a little disappointing. Something needs to be done about that, whether they move within Arizona or get out of there. To me, it's not the greatest look," is what he told the Toronto Star. And again, he's just flying in. He's just popping in. He doesn't play for the Coyotes, but this is the visiting team perspective. And then there's Austin Matthews, which is important. Speaking of photos, I had to take this one from his GQ photo shoot. Sorry, a little distracted. Austin Matthews, born here, where I'm from, in Northern California in the Bay Area. He moved down to Arizona at a young age, so spent most of his impressionable years in the desert, growing up, playing hockey. He's actually backing this situation, quote, "It's very unique. It's always fun for it being a college hockey rink, not the same as an NHL rink. I mean, it's a great atmosphere and makes for a fun game." So he sees it more at surface level, and obviously he's, connected to Arizona in a certain way, but very disconnected from this scenario. Here's what a couple other players say. Coyotes forward Travis Boyd, quote, "When we're at Mullet and we're buzzing, we get the crowd into it, and you feel that home ice advantage." In a way, right? It's what every team would want. Intimate environment, fans all over the glass, loud, even if it's a small capacity, so long as the building is small to match it, that it kind of gives that home ice vibe. Totally understand that. Sabres captain Kyle Okposo, quote, "It's some of the best ice I've ever been on. The puck slides really well. It's fast. So that aspect of it is great for sure." Now, it's a warmer environment, but I think we've established over the years that humidity plays a huge part in great hockey ice. And it's dry in the desert. That makes for good ice, so long as you can keep that building cold enough and the ice maintained enough, the dry air and the cold air conditioning that they provide that building, and obviously the ice plant itself, it makes for good ice, and the Sabres captain knows it. Max Domi used to be a desert dog. Now he's part of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He said, quote, "They've got a great fan base too. I remember weekend games were in Glendale, which is, 30 minutes west of Phoenix with traffic sometimes, and it'd be packed. So there's hockey fans there, no doubt. It's just a matter of location." Well, Tempe is fine. The arena where it's at in Tempe, I think Their future home, if it were ever in Tempe, would be great. Or Scottsdale would be great. But it's the building size that most players are taking issue with here. So here are my takeaways. And like I said before, I say this with no pleasure. I say this with no intention other than to give people in Arizona the heads up. And what you're hearing and seeing locally is important. The people with, a boots on the ground type connections, they matter the most. They're hearing and seeing all the right things. They're paying attention to the situation. So I encourage you to pay attention to them. But from the broader, bigger scale perspective here, the NHL has done so much to keep this team down there, and they still might. But this gets so much more complicated if this next 100-acre project doesn't go their way. And that shouldn't require a vote. It should be more straightforward if they can acquire the land from the state of Arizona. But supply and demand, that's why I'm making this video. It blows my mind that the supply is so low, but that the demand is so high that people are willing to pay that ticket price. And the Coyotes have said that their revenue and their season tickets are about as good as they've ever been, all things considered. It's just that the supply is so low that the demand and what people are willing to pay just to get in the door, it kind of amazes me, to be honest. Here's another consideration about the Mullet Arena. What if the Coyotes get good in 2 years? What if they're in the playoffs in 2 years? What if they're in the Western Final? What if they're supposed to host the Stanley Cup Final in 2 years? What do you do? The league cannot have that as one of their centerpiece venues for a situation like that. They just can't. How do they handle this situation moving forward? If it really comes to that. They're kind of almost hoping like, don't make this a problem. Oh, this is now a problem. Now everybody's noticing this, and they've got to go play somewhere else. And that also wouldn't be fair to the Coyotes to have a different rink for the playoffs just because they need to put more fans there. And last thing I'll say here is there's a difference between interim and emergency, just like there's a difference between intimate and tiny. Intimate is 10,000. Tiny is 4,500, right? Those are two totally different things. So yeah, that's an expensive mullet. Not the haircut, the arena. I support the Desert Dogs. I want them to stay. I want them to do well. I just want them to find their forever home. You've made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll help me and this channel. And speaking of that, if you're just finding me for the first time, that's awesome. I really do appreciate it. Make sure, though, before you go and before this video ends, you go down there and hit the subscribe button so that I can definitely see you back here next time. Yeah, do it now.